galaxy had grown quiet in its assumptions. For centuries, the major civilizations prided themselves on their technological mastery. Ships of sleek alloys and complex designs traversed the stars, each reflecting the culture that built it. Every race believed that their engineering was the pinnacle of evolution. Humanity, it was agreed, had been gone for far too long to matter. 3,000 years had passed since the last human ship disappeared from known space. Ancient records described them as curious, reckless, and unpredictable. Some civilizations laughed at their primitive engines and crude weaponry. They had expected humans to fade into myth, a footnote in galactic history. Then the humans returned. It began on the edge of the Erythraean expanse, a border region largely ignored by the Central Councils. Alien scouts detected something strange, an irregular pulse in subspace communications. At first, it was dismissed as a natural phenomenon. No known race could move energy signatures like this. When the scouts approached, the truth hit them like a supernova. 3 human ships appeared, floating into the darkness with shapes no alien eye had ever seen. They were massive but not uniform. Their hulls curved in asymmetric patterns, smooth yet angular in a way that defied the standard principles of balance and symmetry. The metals glimmered like liquid sunlight, yet they emitted no visible heat. Lieutenant Krell aboard the alien scout Vuriax stared at the data feeds in disbelief. This can't be real," he whispered to his crew. "Are we looking at humans?" His second officer, Jurak, shook his tentacle-like appendages nervously. "Impossible. They were extinct 3,000 years ago. Their last vessels primitive, slow, barely capable of interstellar jumps. And yet the scanners told the truth. The ships were alive in a way aliens could not understand. Energy flowed through them not in circuits, but as if the vessels themselves were thinking, anticipating, adjusting. The ships moved with elegance, cutting through space with impossible speed and precision. The scouts tried to send a standard greeting, a neutral message of curiosity. The humans responded almost instantly, not in words, but in a subspace pulse that reorganized the alien communication channels, translating itself into multiple languages at once. The message was simple, direct, and calm. "We return." Panic rippled through the expanse. The alien fleets, long used to their own predictable designs, had never faced anything like this. Military commanders scrambled. Sensors, shields, weapons, all calibrated for centuries of alien norms, struggled to track the human ships. Every maneuver the humans made seemed impossible, yet flawless. The first engagement was brief and unplanned. A scouting fleet attempted a standard intercept, assuming intimidation would work. The humans didn't attack aggressively. They didn't need to. Their ships danced around alien formations, exploiting gaps and weaknesses that had never been theorized. Missiles aimed at them disintegrated in mid-space as the humans diverted energy to shields, then rerouted it to propulsion, vanishing from one point and appearing light seconds away. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. At the central command of the Thryn Dominion, Admiral Sorvek leaned over his console, pale and rigid. "They've returned, and they've changed everything we know about warships." Krell, still observing the data, swallowed. "It's artistry, not engineering. They think differently." "They adapt," Sorvek nodded grimly. "Prepare the fleets. We cannot let them approach the inner systems without understanding them. Every civilization that underestimated humanity has disappeared historically." Meanwhile, the humans moved not with haste but with purpose. Captain Leora, aboard the lead ship Aurora's Dawn, observed the alien scouts carefully. Her crew, hundreds of humans trained for exploration, research, and defense, worked in silence. Each adjustment of the ship's hull, each rerouting of energy, seemed almost instinctual. Sensors picked up alien positions, velocity, and weapon readiness, then calculated a path through their formations that minimized risk and maximized efficiency. "Prepare for docking at the hub," Leora said calmly, speaking into the comms that reached the secondary ships. "We are not here to fight. Observation is the goal. If they react poorly, we will adapt, but only as necessary." Her first officer, Commander Ryan, looked at her with quiet awe. 3,000 years, and they still do not know if we will attack or not. Humans always leave doubt. Leora smiled faintly. "Good, let them wonder. That uncertainty is more valuable than their largest fleet." Back in the alien fleets, fear had begun to spread. Analysts compared the human ships to their own designs, looking for weak points, but found nothing that could be exploited. Every theory they held about propulsion, energy management, and combat efficiency was being shattered. Ships were no longer just machines. These were creations of thought, will, and adaptability. Even more astonishing, the humans' design philosophy broke every known rule. Alien engineers prided themselves on symmetry and redundancy, believing that predictability ensured safety. The humans embraced asymmetry, modular structures, and adaptive forms. Hulls shifted in real time, energy conduits rerouted themselves without delay, and the vessel's artificial intelligence responded to threats faster than the fastest alien processor. "Impossible," muttered Jurek. "They should not exist like this. They should not be able to react that fast. They are thinking in ways we cannot comprehend." Across the galaxy, news of the human return spread like wildfire. In every council chamber, in every trading hub, whispers grew into debates. Some believed the humans had discovered new physics. Others suspected ancient lost technology. A few feared that the humans had changed so much that they were no longer the same species. But no one could deny the truth. Humans were back, and after 3,000 years, they had evolved into something astonishing. The first direct meeting occurred at a neutral zone near the Expanse. Alien diplomats and scientists arrived, cautious but compelled by curiosity. The humans had set a clear expectation: observation only, no weapons unless provoked. When the aliens boarded the human docking station, they were struck by the simplicity and efficiency of the interiors. No unnecessary decoration, no intimidating displays of firepower. Instead, every panel, every interface, every workstation was designed for function and flexibility. The humans themselves were calm, measured, and focused. Dr. Vess, an elder scientist of the Orinthian Collective, could not hide his astonishment. "These ships, they violate every principle of engineering we have developed over millennia, and yet they function better than anything we have." Leora approached, her posture relaxed, her voice clear. "We build what we need. We survive what we face. That is our principle. Our designs come from adaptation, creativity, and necessity. We have not forgotten the past, but we have not been bound by it either." The room was silent. Even translators struggled to capture the nuances of her speech. There was no arrogance, no threat, only confidence, calm, and clarity. And yet in that calm, the aliens understood something profound. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and fearless. They had returned not to beg for respect, nor to submit to galactic hierarchy. They had returned to be themselves. As the first day ended, the alien representatives departed with more questions than answers. Human ships returned to orbit, their engines glowing softly in the void. The scouts that had once tried to intercept them now hung back, cautious, calculating, unsure of what they had witnessed. Captain Leora looked out at the stars. "We are back," she said softly, "and they will remember us. Not because we fight, but because we think, adapt, and survive." Somewhere across the galaxy, in distant systems and council chambers, those words would spread. For 3,000 years, humanity had been forgotten. For 3,000 years, civilizations had assumed that humans were no longer a force. They were wrong. The humans were back, and in ways the galaxy could never have imagined. And this was only the beginning. The neutral hub, known across the galaxy as Urindor Station, buzzed with activity. Alien scientists, engineers, and diplomats crowded the docking bays, whispering nervously. Their collective curiosity was matched only by their fear. Humanity had returned, and with them, technology that defied all known rules. Captain Leora's fleet hovered just outside the station, their engines glowing softly, ready to respond to any threat, but no human aggression was planned. Inside, humans moved with calm precision. Every crew member understood their role, yet they were flexible, capable of adapting instantly to unexpected circumstances. The alien representatives were led into the Aurora's Dawn, the flagship of the human fleet. The moment they stepped inside, shock replaced hesitation. The interior was simple yet brilliant. Control panels molded to the operator, energy displays rearranged themselves to show the most important data, and even lighting adapted to each visitor's biology. Dr. Vess, an elder scientist from the Orinthian collective, could barely contain himself. This is beyond engineering. It's art and logic combined. How is it possible? Leora smiled faintly. We do not separate logic from creativity. Our ships grow from both. Every design, every mechanism, every energy conduit is meant to survive, to adapt, to overcome. We are not bound by tradition. We innovate because we must. An alien engineer named Turak, representing the Asrian hegemony, stepped forward with caution. Your hulls, they shift. We see modules changing shape, energy flowing in ways that contradict known physics. Not contradicting, said Ryan, the human first officer. Adapting. Our hulls adjust to pressure, velocity, and energy attacks in real time. We don't fight blindly. We respond. The aliens observed a demonstration. On a holographic map of the expanse, Leora's crew simulated a hostile engagement. As virtual missiles approached, the human ships on the display twisted, reshaped, and diverted energy to shields automatically. Energy flowed like liquid through the hulls, rerouting itself instantly to counter threats. Turek whispered to Vess, "This is impossible. Even our fastest AI cannot respond like this. They think faster than we can process." The humans noticed the awe and concern in their visitors' expressions. Leora gestured to a demonstration room where a smaller human vessel floated midair. You may examine the vessel closely. Touch, observe, test if you wish. But know this, it is designed to survive, not to show off. The aliens hesitated. Their species valued understanding, but instinct told them to fear the unknown. One by one they approached, touching the hulls, examining energy conduits, scanning propulsion systems. Every analysis produced more questions than answers. "This metal, it reshapes itself?" asked Vess, his eyes wide. "It's not memory alloy, it's alive somehow. It responds to stimuli intelligently." Ryan nodded. "It's not alive as you think, it's responsive. It senses stress, pressure, energy signatures, even nearby movement. It adapts. That's how humans survived on planets harsher than any of your worlds for millennia." Turek frowned. "You mean you have been refining this technology for thousands of years, without any contact?" Leora's expression was calm. "We were never gone, we survived, we adapted. Our methods are simple: observe, learn, improve. Every challenge we faced shaped our ships and systems. Every harsh world we conquered taught us efficiency, flexibility, and resilience." The alien representatives looked at each other, a mixture of envy and fear creeping in. These humans had taken survival, what they had dismissed as primitive necessity, and transformed it into an art form that outclassed the galaxy's top engineers. An hour later, the human crew gave a live demonstration of propulsion and energy systems. In the station's observation bay, the smaller vessel slowly lifted off. Alien sensors tracked its movement, recording every fluctuation in energy. Then, with a pulse of light, it accelerated without visible exhaust, shifting its trajectory in impossible ways, responding to sensor inputs faster than any alien fleet's command could process. Dr. Vess leaned forward. They are bending physics. Their propulsion methods should not function, yet they do. And more, look at the energy efficiency. They use less fuel than a scout with a much larger ship. Leora stood beside him, hands clasped. We do not rely on what is convenient. We innovate out of necessity. Our ancestors survived catastrophes, harsh planets, and predators that required cunning and speed. That legacy continues. Every ship, every system reflects that history. The aliens began to understand slowly. This was not magic, not luck. Humans were different. Their minds, their creativity, and their adaptability were as much weapons as the ship's energy shields. Some young alien engineers, inspired rather than fearful, began to ask questions openly. How do you make the hulls adaptive? One asked. How do you integrate intelligence with the ship without risking system collapse? Commander Ryan answered. We do not integrate intelligence in the way you think. The ship and crew operate as a single unit. Sensors, energy conduits, and propulsion adjust automatically, guided by human oversight. It is not a program, it is understanding applied. The ship anticipates, the crew responds, and the universe adapts. It was a concept almost impossible for aliens to grasp. They relied on rigid hierarchies, fixed algorithms, and centuries of engineering tradition. Humans relied on intuition, observation, and rapid iteration. The demonstration concluded with a controlled test of the human energy weapon. The aliens braced themselves, expecting destruction, but instead the weapon emitted a focused pulse, creating a temporary energy barrier in space. It disrupted the alien monitoring instruments without causing lasting damage. Vess gasped. It disables without killing. We cannot counter it. This is strategic genius. You do not need destruction to dominate. Your designs ensure survival and superiority simultaneously. Leora simply nodded. We do not seek unnecessary conflict. Our goal is survival, exploration, and understanding. But we will defend ourselves, and we will do so effectively always. The atmosphere on Urindor Station shifted. Alien scientists whispered urgently to each other, some in awe, some in fear, some with envy. Across the galaxy, news would spread quickly. Human technology had advanced beyond comprehension, combining creativity, adaptability, and resilience. As the day drew to a close, the humans gathered in the observation deck of the Aurora's dawn. The stars stretched across the void, silent witnesses to their return. Ryan looked out, thoughtful. They are scared, they are curious, but most importantly, they are thinking about us in ways they never did before. Captain Leora placed a hand on his shoulder. Let them think. Let them wonder. That uncertainty, that is our advantage. 3,000 years of survival have taught humanity one thing: never underestimate what we can do, and never assume we will fight the way you expect. The human crew prepared for the next stage of their return. Exploration, diplomacy, and observation would continue, but the galaxy had already learned an important lesson. Humans were back, and after 3 millennia, they were no longer the species remembered in old tales. They had evolved, not just in technology but in strategy, resilience, and thought. Some alien leaders, meanwhile, began quietly debating their next moves. Should they attempt to reverse engineer human designs? Should they strike before the humans grew stronger? Others whispered differently, admiring the elegance of the designs, dreaming of collaboration rather than conflict. But all agreed on one truth: the galaxy would never be the same, and for humanity this was only the beginning. The secrets of their ships, the principles of adaptation and creativity, would soon be tested in ways even they could not yet foresee. Because returning after 3,000 years was one thing, but surviving the reactions of an entire galaxy, curious, fearful, and envious, was another challenge entirely. And humanity, as always, thrived on challenges. Word of humanity's return had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In council chambers, trading hubs and military headquarters, debates raged. Some civilizations admired the humans' ingenuity, while others saw them as a threat that could no longer be ignored. A coalition of warlike species, united by fear and tradition, formed in secret. They called themselves the Varrock Alliance. Their fleets were vast, heavily armed and meticulously coordinated, built on centuries of military doctrine. They were determined to confront humanity, to test whether these resurrected primitives were a genuine threat or a curiosity they could destroy before it spread. Captain Leora had anticipated this. From the bridge of the Aurora's dawn, she watched star maps showing the coalition's movement. Sensors detected dozens of warships converging on a remote sector where humans were conducting exploration missions. "Ryan," she said calmly, "they want a show of strength. They want to see if humans are a danger. Let's give them an answer, but on our terms." Her first officer, Commander Ryan, nodded. "We will not strike unless provoked. But we will demonstrate that underestimating humanity is unwise." The human fleet moved with precision, positioning themselves in a neutral zone outside the coalition's claimed systems. When the Varrock Alliance arrived, their fleet filled the void like a storm. Massive warships bristled with weapons, shields glowing with defensive energy, engines ready for combat. They expected fear, but what they found was calm, calculated confidence. Admiral Krell, commanding the coalition's flagship, observed the human formations. "Their numbers are small," he muttered. 3,000 years of absence, and yet they position themselves with perfect balance. "How?" Turak, the young engineer who had visited Urindor Station, whispered. "It is not balance, Admiral. It is prediction. They anticipate every move we make, without firing a single shot." The first test began without warning. Coalition warships fired standard volleys, assuming the humans would scramble, shield, and retreat. But the human vessels responded differently. They twisted and reconfigured in real time. Energy barriers rerouted power to weak points. Engines adjusted, propelling ships along unexpected vectors. Missiles and plasma bolts struck empty space, leaving the humans unharmed and unflustered. Leora watched the displays, calm as ever. "Remember, this is not about destroying them," she told Ryan. "It is about showing them that we cannot be predicted, and that strategy is more than firepower." The humans launched a series of tactical maneuvers that seemed almost chaotic, but every movement had a purpose. One ship simulated a retreat, drawing several coalition vessels into a narrow corridor. Simultaneously, other ships rerouted energy to shields, then fired non-lethal energy pulses that temporarily disabled enemy targeting systems. The coalition scrambled, trying to regain control. Admiral Krell roared in frustration. "They are anticipating us. They respond faster than our AI. How is this possible?" Vess, the alien scientist who had accompanied them, shook his head. "This is human genius, not brute force, not numbers, pure adaptability, creativity, and observation. They think differently than any species I have ever known." The coalition attempted another approach, forming a tight formation and activating all weapons. The humans responded with the same precision. Ships reoriented, energy rerouted, and small drones deployed to probe vulnerabilities. Each action appeared instinctual, yet calculated, as if the humans could read the flow of battle before it happened. Ryan glanced at the captain. "They are testing us. They believe humans cannot be beaten through conventional tactics." Leora nodded. "Good, let them test. Let them learn. That is part of the lesson." Hours passed. The void filled with the hum of energy, the flash of defensive pulses, and the subtle dance of ships that refused to collide or falter. The Varrock Alliance began to realize that their centuries of strategy, doctrines followed blindly for generations, were useless against humans. Creativity, adaptability, and intuition were forces they could not match. Then came the decisive moment. Leora ordered a maneuver that would become the defining image of the human return. The fleet split into multiple vectors, each ship moving independently yet coordinated perfectly. Energy pulses created temporary barriers that blocked coalition targeting systems. Ships moved through gaps, reconfiguring continuously, appearing simultaneously in multiple locations. The coalition fired, but every attack failed. Missiles disintegrated, beams missed, and energy shields absorbed strikes without weakening. For the first time, Admiral Krell realized something terrifying. Humanity was not just surviving, they were dominating the engagement without firing lethal weapons. Vess whispered in awe, they do not destroy. They disable. They control the battlefield without annihilation. This is strategy beyond war. It is art. Leora addressed her crew calmly. Maintain control. Do not escalate unless necessary. Let them see the advantage of creativity and adaptation over pure strength. The Varrock fleet finally halted, their command structure in chaos. Ships drifted, unable to predict the humans' next move. Communications crackled with confusion as fleet commanders attempted to reorganize. Human ships, however, remained in perfect formation, ready to respond to any threat, but prepared to retreat if the coalition attempted aggression. Admiral Krell, pale and trembling, sent a message to the human flagship. We acknowledge your superiority in this engagement. You have demonstrated capabilities that our fleets cannot counter. We propose a ceasefire. Leora received the message and nodded. Accepted. Let this be the first of many lessons. The galaxy must learn that humans are unpredictable, resourceful, and resilient. That is our strength. After the engagement, the humans gathered aboard the Aurora's Dawn. The crew moved quietly, yet there was a sense of pride in their calm efficiency. They had demonstrated mastery without unnecessary destruction, a concept unfamiliar to many of the galaxy's civilizations. Ryan turned to Leora. They fear us, but also they respect us. They will think twice before underestimating humanity again. Leora's gaze stretched across the stars. Good. Fear is temporary, respect lasts, and we will earn that respect through action, through innovation, and through survival. Humanity thrives where others falter, because we do not rely solely on power. We rely on thought, creativity, and adaptability. Across the galaxy, the results of the engagement spread like a spark through dry grass. News channels, starports, and diplomatic channels buzzed with reports of the humans' performance. Scholars debated, engineers studied data streams, and military leaders feared that no conventional tactic could defeat them. Some civilizations sent envoys to learn from the humans, hoping to gain insight. Others formed defensive alliances, preparing for potential conflict. But all were changed by one undeniable fact. Humans, long thought extinct or primitive, had returned stronger, smarter, and more adaptable than any species in the galaxy. The Varrock Alliance, shaken and humbled, returned to their territory. They would spend months analyzing the engagement, trying to understand what had happened, and failing. They had faced many advanced civilizations in their history, but none had matched the ingenuity and unpredictability of humans. Back aboard the Aurora's Dawn, Leora addressed her crew. Today we showed the galaxy who we are. Not through destruction, not through dominance, but through creativity, adaptability, and unity. Remember this feeling. Remember what we can do when we think, when we innovate, and when we survive together. The crew nodded, quietly proud. They had returned after 3,000 years, and the galaxy had begun to remember humanity, not as a primitive race, but as a species of ingenuity, resilience, and quiet power. And yet, as they prepared for the next stage of exploration, Leora knew the challenges were far from over. The galaxy was watching. Curiosity, envy, and fear would follow them everywhere. They would face new tests, unexpected threats, and civilizations that might not welcome them peacefully. But humanity thrived on challenges. They had survived deserts, ice worlds, collapsing planets and predators beyond imagination. They had endured 3,000 years of isolation. They had returned, and the galaxy had underestimated them at its own peril. Somewhere in the void, in systems untouched by human eyes for centuries, new opportunities awaited. Stars to explore, technologies to discover, and civilizations to encounter. And humanity, once underestimated and forgotten, would continue to astonish, to innovate, and to survive. Because when humans faced the impossible, they did not retreat, they adapted, they learned, and they thrived. And the galaxy, for the first time in millennia, would remember the true power of humanity. Months had passed since the first engagement with the Varrock Alliance. Humanity's fleet had traveled deeper into the galaxy, exploring star systems untouched for millennia. Every discovery, every adaptation, every encounter reinforced what the galaxy was beginning to understand. Humans were no longer the species of old myths. They were something new, something extraordinary. Erendor Station had become a hub of diplomacy, observation, and cautious collaboration. Alien scientists still crowded its corridors, eager to study human technology, yet wary of provoking it. They marveled at the modular ship designs, the adaptive hulls, the self-repairing energy conduits, and the AI systems that worked as an extension of the human mind. But no matter how much they studied, the humans retained an edge that could not be duplicated. Captain Leora stood on the observation deck of the Aurora's dawn, watching the distant stars shimmer. "They are beginning to respect us," she said quietly to Commander Ryan. "But respect is not enough. They must understand humanity, not just our ships, but our way of thinking." Ryan nodded. "They already fear underestimating us. That fear will last longer than any fleet or weapon." It was true. Across countless systems, alien civilizations whispered of the humans' return. Some sent envoys, hoping to trade knowledge or forge alliances. Others strengthened defenses, fearing potential domination. But everywhere the same pattern emerged: admiration mixed with caution, respect mingled with curiosity. In one remote system, a delegation of Asrians approached the human fleet. Young engineers and scholars had journeyed across light years, eager to learn. They observed the humans at work, noting how the crew coordinated, adapted, and innovated in ways that defied conventional logic. "This is incredible," said one engineer, her eyes wide as she studied the controls. "Even with all our technology, we cannot replicate this. Your ships, your methods, they are beyond what we imagined." Ryan smiled. "It is not just the ships, it is the way we think." Adaptation, creativity, problem-solving under pressure. These are the true engines of humanity. Leora added, "We survive because we learn, and we learn because we never stop observing. Every challenge, every threat, every unknown planet or star teaches us something new. That knowledge becomes part of who we are, part of our ships, part of our strategy, part of our very being." Even the Varrock Alliance, humbled by their earlier engagement, began to change. Reports reached Admiral Krell that humans did not conquer worlds, did not enslave civilizations, and did not exploit resources recklessly. Instead, they explored, adapted, and demonstrated mastery over technology and strategy without unnecessary violence. Krell frowned. "They do not act like conquerors, they act like teachers or guardians." Vess, the elder scientist, nodded. "Perhaps that is why they are so dangerous. They inspire, they innovate, and they survive. They do not need to destroy to dominate. Their influence spreads by example." Human ships continued to demonstrate their abilities. In one notable exercise, they navigated a treacherous asteroid field, weaving through massive rocks at speeds no alien fleet could match. Sensors, shields, and propulsion systems adjusted instantaneously. Alien observers were astounded, not only by the ship's technical perfection but by the crew's seamless coordination. "This is not just technology," said a visiting alien scholar. "This is human ingenuity at its finest. They think, adapt, and survive in ways we cannot predict. They have transformed survival into an art form." Leora watched the demonstration silently, knowing that every movement sent a message to the galaxy. Humans were to be respected, not feared, but never underestimated. Soon, news of humanity's capabilities spread even to distant sectors untouched by the fleet. Young alien engineers risked everything to study alongside humans, eager to learn their methods. Trade networks adjusted to accommodate human innovations, while scholars debated their strategies in universities across the stars. Even more remarkable was how humanity's return reshaped diplomacy. Instead of domination, humans inspired collaboration. Civilizations that had long been rivals began to share knowledge, hoping to emulate the creativity and adaptability that humans exemplified. Humanity became a standard of excellence, a benchmark against which all others measured themselves. But not all reactions were peaceful. Some species, fearful of humanity's influence, attempted subtle sabotage, covert espionage, and political manipulation. They sought to limit humans' presence, believing that if the galaxy could not control them, they should at least delay their influence. The humans, however, anticipated these moves. Their ships, adaptive systems detected irregular energy patterns, their crew identified anomalies, and human diplomacy exposed covert actions before they could escalate. Every attempt to hinder them failed, not through force but through strategy, observation, and foresight. Leora addressed her crew during a briefing aboard the Aurora's Dawn. "Every civilization we meet has a choice: fear us, resist us, or learn from us. We will not force their choice, but we will act with clarity, intelligence, and integrity. Our strength lies not in domination but in adaptability, innovation, and perseverance." Ryan added, "They see our ships and they see technology. But what they must see is humanity, the ability to survive, to think, to create under any circumstances. That is our real advantage." The humans' presence soon began to influence larger galactic politics. Alliances reformed, councils debated policies inspired by human approaches, and military doctrines shifted to account for the unpredictability and ingenuity humans brought. Entire sectors began to emulate human methods in engineering, strategy, and problem-solving. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy had a benchmark that was both inspiring and humbling. Humanity was no longer a footnote in history; they were a guiding example. One quiet evening, as the fleet traveled through a newly charted system, Leora looked out at the stars, reflecting on their journey. 3,000 years, she said softly. 3,000 years of absence, and yet we are remembered and perhaps even admired. Not for power, not for conquest, but for what we do best: think, adapt, survive. Ryan stood beside her, watching the distant glow of a blue sun. "The galaxy will never forget us, and not just because of our ships, because of humanity itself." Leora nodded. "We are not perfect, and we do not claim to be, but we are persistent, adaptable, and creative. That is enough. That is what makes humans remarkable. That is why we astonish the galaxy." As the fleet moved on, distant observers took note. Young alien engineers wrote journals and designs inspired by human creativity. Scholars debated the philosophy behind their ships and tactics. Political leaders reconsidered alliances and strategies. And fleets once confident in their superiority paused to think, realizing that humans were not just a species. They were a force of nature, capable of surprising the galaxy in ways no one could predict. The humans, meanwhile, continued their exploration. Every planet surveyed, every star system studied, every interaction recorded added to their growing understanding. Each success, each adaptation, reinforced what they had always known. Survival required intelligence, creativity, and courage, and humanity had these in abundance. Back on Erendor Station, Dr. Vess met with a group of young aliens. "I have studied countless civilizations," he said quietly, "but never have I seen anything like humans. Their ships, their strategies, their very mindset, they astonish us not because of brute force, but because of ingenuity. They remind us that technology without thought is meaningless." Elsewhere, Admiral Krell of the Varrock Alliance, humbled by past engagements, quietly adjusted his doctrines. "We underestimated them," he admitted. "We feared them as conquerors, but they are something more, something beyond our understanding. They inspire not through fear but through excellence." Across the galaxy, the story was the same. Wherever humans appeared, admiration and awe followed. They did not demand it. They earned it through survival, innovation, and the unique ability to turn adversity into opportunity. Captain Leora, standing on the bridge of the Aurora's dawn, looked at her crew. "This is only the beginning," she said. "The galaxy will continue to watch us, learn from us, and sometimes fear us. But we will continue to do what humans do best: adapt, survive, and astonish." Ryan smiled. 3,000 years gone, and we return to show them what humanity can do. Not by conquering, but by existing as we are. And in that moment the fleet moved forward, lights glowing against the endless darkness, a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and creativity. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had returned, and it had reminded every civilization that survival, intelligence, and innovation were powers far greater than firepower alone. For 3,000 years, humans had been gone. Now they were back, not as myths, not as stories, but as a living, breathing example of excellence. And the galaxy, in awe and admiration, had no choice but to take notice. Because after 3,000 years, humanity's ships and the minds that built them astonished the galaxy.